Okay, so today's a little bit warmer. We're actually, I think we're above freezing today, so everything's getting thawed out and we're getting back to normal operations. So the other day I showed you that I disconnected our RV pump, our water tank, our IBC tank from the hoses and everything. That way, if it froze up, which the pump usually does freeze up when we get that cold, that we'd be able to just hook it back up when it warmed up. So here's some video of me disconnecting that. Okay, so I have all my pump and everything wrapped up in these blankets and insulation. It works really well. So here's the pump. Right there is the pump. This is the hose that goes to the camper. This is the hose that goes to the house. And then we have ventilation. And that ventilation wraps around all that hose. That hose goes into the house, and it's actually quite warm. It's really nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect both hoses. The pump will run, and I'll let the pump all that water out of this. I'll shut this here, disconnect it. That way the water can drain out of that as well. Now you might be able to hear that the pump is running. I have the water shut off, so there's no water going into it. I have this opened up, so all the water is being pumped out of the pump. Took the suction hose off. Actually, I just cut it off. And then we're going to fill the tank. As you can see, I let the tank go down a little ways. I wish it would have been a little bit more, actually. Okay, if you want to see that entire video, I'll put an up next box at the end of this video to that video. So today, like I said, we're back up to regular temperatures, well, you know, above freezing. I think we're supposed to get down to 20s tonight, and then we're going to get kind of cold again, but it's not going to get down into the negative numbers. Now, what I want to do before it gets down to the zero temperatures and the single digit temperatures, I want to empty that IBC tank as much as possible. So I've told Carolyn to use all the water she wants. Usually she tries to conserve water and shuts off the thing when she's taking a shower and soaps up. I told her just leave it run. That way we can drain down the IBC tank a little bit and then fill it up with well water, which will be much hotter than the water in the tank. That way when it gets back down to those cold temperatures, we'll have a little bit of breathing room. And then I think the cold temperatures only last 3 days, and then it'll be back up to above freezing temperatures, so we'll be okay. So I wanted to show you that we got the thing up and running again. You can see the water coming out. Well, I guess you can see the water coming out. It's pretty dark in here. And I can turn my water heater on. So you may have heard that kick on. So the plan worked pretty well, and I think this is the plan we're going to do here on out. The well still provides us with all the water we need. we still have our buckets full of water. I go out every day when the tank is disconnected, and I get buckets of water, fill the chicken water. And that's another thing I should address, is the chicken water. We have 2 chicken waterers. Well, I got a bunch of them, but I only have 2 out. And so what I do is about 2 times a day, I switch them out. I bring them both up during the night, let them thaw out, and then I take one down in the morning, and then about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I take the other one down, switch them out. That way they got water that's not frozen, but they're not eating or drinking too terribly much. It's just too cold. But they're doing pretty well. I'm happy. The rooster won't get on his roost. They are all up there on their roost, on their sticks, and having a good time. And he used to get up there, but all of a sudden he just stopped going up there, and he's laying on the ground. So I was kind of worried about him. Not on the ground, but on the floor of the chicken coop. So I was kind of worried about him. So we bought some cedar chips. Normally we had straw laying around, but we don't have any place to store it this year. So we bought some cedar chips. It was only a few dollars. And we spread it out so he'd have something to lay on. And he made it through. I got a comment the other day that it was just strange words to hear. I haven't heard these words in a long time. He goes through a scenario of it's really cold and freezing pipes and furnace won't ever shut off. I don't know if he said all that. I'm kind of combining comments at this point. Somebody said that I guess it was in Texas, and their electric furnace has run nonstop, hasn't shut off. I mean, just imagine that electric bill. So this guy says, I can't wait until spring arrives. And I thought, boy, that sounds strange. I mean, I used to say it all the time, but I haven't said it in years. It's funny. As soon as it would get below freezing, I was miserable. Back in the olden days, I was just miserable. The whole time I was miserable. My ex-wife always kept the temperature colder than I liked. It was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable the whole winter. I wore sweatshirts, sometimes 2 sweatshirts to stay warm. Well, you can see I'm in a t-shirt right now. It's nice and cozy in here. I think I got it a little hot since it warmed up today. It's 88 degrees in here. Usually I've been trying to cut it off right at 81, but I got tricked by the warmer temperatures. But I was always miserable. Didn't want to go outside. And you got to go outside. You got to shovel snow and do different things. But oh, boy, I hated it so much. And then I had to travel. I was a consultant, so I traveled pretty much the Midwest and pretty much the northern Midwest. Missouri, I had a lot of clients in Missouri, a few in Minnesota, a few in Wisconsin, a few in Iowa, occasionally over there in Indiana and Michigan, but not very often with those 2 states. So in the wintertime, it was just always nasty. It was just constantly nasty. I remember one time driving up to northern Iowa. Northwest Iowa is right there on the South Dakota-Iowa border. What, Cedar Falls or something like that? I can't remember the name of the town. And it got down to the negative 12 or something. And I'm in this car. It was a newer car. I wasn't too worried about the car, but I kept thinking, if this car dies or something happens to it, oh, it would have been terrible. And you're driving in kind of like a sleet type of rain, and the windows start to freeze up. You're running the wipers, but it just starts to glaze up and you can't see out of them anymore. You got the defroster on full blast. It won't keep up. I've had some terrible experiences traveling in the wintertime. I just hated it. And so I used to always think about, gosh, I can't wait until spring arrives. Can't wait until spring arrives. Of course, I used to garden also, but I don't think that's what I was anticipating was the gardening. What I was anticipating was it warming up. And so NASCAR used to come back on in February, Daytona. And I used to always say, hey, that's the first day of spring for me because of NASCAR. But it wasn't. I mean, it was something to look forward to. That I knew spring was on the way, but it wasn't. I remember one time in February, after the Daytona 500, I started hanging siding. And it was pretty warm. It started out pretty warm, and I'm cooking right through that. I'm doing a great job getting done real fast, and all of a sudden it turned cold and it started snowing, and I'm up there on the ladder. And we had these awnings over the windows. It was an old house, so it had a lot of fancy trim and designs, and these awnings were over the windows. And I'm standing on this thing, and it iced up, and I'm starting to slip. I was thinking about this comment, looking forward to spring. And I'm thinking, I haven't thought about that in the longest time. And I'm thinking, why is this so much better? Well, one, I don't have to travel at all. The other day, we went to Dollar General. And I started out early in the morning. I hooked the battery chargers up to the truck to make sure the truck would start when we decided to go at 4 p.m. And the chargers wouldn't turn on. It was so cold, the chargers wouldn't turn on. And so I'm messing with those. I bring them in, I warm them up a little bit, I take it back out there, and then they finally start working. One of them did. The battery is needing recondition, so it starts reconditioning, running tests and reconditioning. I finally got the battery warmed up. But the thing is I had nothing really that was an emergency. If it charged, great. If it didn't, well, I guess we're just not going to Dollar General. And the reason we go to Dollar General, about once a week, go to Dollar General, we get some string cheese and cottage cheese and pork rinds for snacks, because we're carnivores. We just eat carnivore snacks. But if it hadn't started, it wouldn't have been no big deal. Well, of course, then we had to pull out. I don't have four-wheel drive, and there was a layer of snow, an inch or so, maybe. And I thought, well, if we don't get out of here, I'm just going to back up and call it quits. I mean, the truck made it, which was great. But I'm just not stressed about wintertime anymore. It's just fine. It's whatever. And then I have this Carhartt coat. I think makes a big difference. I'm not bragging when I say this. People always think I'm bragging about the coat. It is the most expensive one that they had at Orscheln's, and it was, they had ratings, and I forget what the ratings were, but rating 1 was the best, and rating 5 was, kind of like a jacket. And I never had a Carhartt that was so warm. I've never had a coat that was so warm. This coat is incredible. And then I didn't even know they sold these. We've got these gloves, and I don't even know if they keep very warm. It doesn't matter if they do or not. They're waterproof. And that's one of the big things around here is every time I have to go outside in the wintertime, I'm messing with water. Probably in the summertime, I just don't realize it. But in the wintertime, constantly messing with water, filling buckets, filling the chicken water. I know it's time to quit because these will get water on them and they'll ice up, and I can't move my fingers anymore because the gloves are stuck. They're just stuck in one spot. So I bring them in here, hang them over the stove, and they're waterproof. I mean, that's what's so great. The other thing you need is waterproof boots. I get steel toe because cutting firewood, I'm always worried I'm going to cut my toe off. So I wear steel toe waterproof boots, and I just buy the cheap ones from Walmart. And I was just talking to Carolyn, maybe I should go buy some really expensive winter boots, steel toe boots. And I thought, nah, that's not important. My feet don't get that cold. They start to get cold. I dump water on them, the boot freezes up, and all of a sudden I can feel my toes starting to get a little chilly, but I don't stay out long enough that it becomes an emergency. And even if it did start to get too cold, I would just come in, just quit whatever I'm doing, come in, dry off. I've got an old set of boots. They got holes in them, so they're not waterproof anymore. But if I had to finish whatever it is I was finishing, I could just go out there with a different pair of boots on if I needed to. But nothing is that big of a deal. Our biggest concern is the chickens, to make sure the chickens make it through. And we've never had a problem with the chickens. Of course, we got those Brahmas and Americanas. They're all winter birds. Just make sure you get good, hardy winter birds. I know everybody's worried about egg production. I get it. I mean, yeah, get yourself a few extra birds if that's your big concern. But get winter hardy birds. Brahmas they've got feathers on their feet. It's really kind of cute to watch them. They don't produce a lot of eggs. There's less eggs than the Americanas. But the Americanas, they do great. Lots of eggs, colorful eggs. So that's our only big concern around here. And then the other thing that we do regularly is we go out and split wood for this wood stove. We didn't split it small enough when we started splitting our firewood because we had that Franklin down there. We didn't know what we were going to get, so when we had that Franklin, we cut everything that's Franklin size. Well, they're too big. So before we bring firewood in, we take the hatchet and a mallet and we split those pieces even smaller than what they were. And that way they fit in this wood stove. It really doesn't take a lot to heat this house. It is a concern that as much as we were using during this cold spell, that we would get behind. But we started to get behind, but Carolyn just did a little bit more today. I did some, I think yesterday. We got everything almost filled back up. We're not hurting for firewood. And like I said, it's gonna warm back up, so we probably won't have to light it 5 times a day. We'll probably get back down to 3 times a day. So I don't think about spring. Don't get me wrong. When spring comes, it's quite enjoyable. The trees turn green again. And I was asking Carolyn, do you think about spring? She said that first year we were here, but she was going to plant that garden. Now, she does talk about fall a lot. I don't think I wish it was fall. I think about fall quite a bit because it's so pretty around here when the fall colors come out. If the world is not pushing you around, telling you you got to get this done, you got to be on the road, you got to be on the road in ice and snow and negative 14 degrees, and in the northern states you got to be driving, and you're just doing the things at your own pace, quite happy with winter. It's really a beautiful season if you can just tolerate it. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was talking about disconnecting that water tank. So I hope I can inspire you to enjoy every season so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.